What's good, everybody? It's your boy Todd Smith here once again with another episode of the No Gimmicks podcast alongside my tag team partner Dale Clifford out there in Fernley, Nevada. Dale, what is good, my man?
I gotta say a lot here as we wrap up Elimination Chamber. Smackdown absolutely delivered another solid pay-per-view. I think they continue to win the war of the pay-per-views.
Yes, they do.
Over Raw. And it's a highly debated winner of the Elimination Chamber, but I know that since day one, the guy finally is a WWE champion. I've been behind him since day one, so I kind of liked it, but we'll see where things go.
Yes, you have. Yeah, I knew you were going to be happy with this one. Now, be perfectly honest with you, I got to say, I think it was time. It was time for Bray to win his first title. So our first match that we're going to give to you here is the actual Elimination Chamber itself for the WWE Championship, featuring John Cena taking on Dean Ambrose, Baron Corbin, The Miz, AJ Styles, and Bray Wyatt. So this is the good, the bad, and the ugly of the WWE Elimination Chamber pay-per-view here. So first, the good. I'm going to have to say yes. Bray outlasting the 5 other combatants and capturing his first WWE title. And Dale, as you just said, you are a fan of the move. Is there anything else you would like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I just know that this guy had been destined to be into the top of the roster for a while, and it just felt like WWE kept screwing it up. And, all right, so he's finally there now. So let's see what happens with what could be the year of Wyatt in 2017. The one thing I know that's going to be very interesting to come out of this now is another match that we'll touch on that in terms of the singles matches was Randy Orton and Luke Harper. And all I know is that match is going to set the tone for what Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton need to do at WrestleMania.
Without question. Yeah, because Randy and Luke, they stole the show, I would say. You know, this match actually delivered, but that was definitely one of the more solid offerings of the evening, which kind of brings us to the bad. So we both agreed that we both thoroughly enjoyed the match. Everything pretty much for the most part was pretty well executed, except for one very important element, that being the actual implementation of the Elimination Chamber itself. So some of the, terms that we were hearing, in the build up to this, it's Satan's structure. It's this structure made out of steel and it's so dangerous. Guys, are describing it during the lead up, during the video package, saying how once they entered the Elimination Chamber, they were never the same after that. Yet we see the first bump outside of the ring, and we discovered that there was padding around the ring instead of the steel. And, the stuff that was supposed to be glass within the chamber was obviously very flexible, like almost like plastic, And you and I were kind of going back and forth about that, and I told you about the spear that Jericho took from Goldberg back in 2003 during the Elimination Chamber, where he actually got speared through it, and it actually split in half. Whatever it was that they used, the material that was supposed to give the illusion of glass, it actually cut him in the process. And your whole take on that was basically that in 2017, the Elimination Chamber is going to be safe, right? So you kind of want to elaborate on that a little bit there, Dale?
Yeah, I know we spent most of the Elimination Chamber just going back and forth about you complaining about how this chamber really didn't deliver in terms of being a stipulation type device. And I was just like, that's just what this chamber has come to be. Is like, to me, it's like this chamber delivered more than we've had in recent memory anyway. I know that, and I kind of thought that some of the ones that we've had over the last couple years had kind of diminished the Elimination Chamber to where it wasn't anything. At least this one, it did have the breakaway spot. Yes, it was a plastic spot, and and they were using the steel along the side. But again, I do think that the very first thing that we noticed was the padding on the outside of the ring. Now, again, just like the padding on the floor is like, that's not as comfortable as it seems, but it just kind of weakens the illusion that the chamber is supposed to be this superstructure. It's like when you put the padding
exactly
to cover it, because it's like now essentially the outside of the ring is, to me, I don't know how much different that is than just the regular floor and a pad, as opposed to a steel and then a pad. So to me, it's like it almost could kind of be the exact same thing that you would have around the ring. So basically, then all you have is the four sides of the cage running up a ring, and then then you have the chambers. It's like, and then that's the only difference. This gets maybe from a Hell in a Cell, is that you have people locked in a chamber.
Yeah, because I kept on saying to myself, I said they very well could have taken these same 6 guys and put them in a no disqualification match without the chamber or without a steel cage of any sort, and we would have still gotten a great match, and we would have gotten some weapons. We could have possibly gotten some table spots along the way, which in itself could have possibly been a little bit more effective, in the long run. But one of my retorts that I had to you was, I had said, these types of matches just do not work in the WWE anymore. They're more suited for a company like Lucha Underground. Because with Lucha Underground, they basically go balls out. If you see a casket match or if you see a steel cage match or something along those lines, there's blood and there's just complete chaos involved in that. But we are talking about the WWE Elimination Chamber pay-per-view here, so I don't want to go off too much about my love for Lucha Underground. So let's move on to the ugly here. And I believe we kind of both agreed. Baron Corbin needs to go ahead and try to figure out what he's going to do, because no matter what this guy tries in terms of hairstyle, it just doesn't seem to work. So not only does he have the continual receding hairline going on, but he also has a new choice of facial hair. Dale, you want to give me some more thoughts on that?
Yeah, I know. It was like we picked on him once before in a pay-per-view about the hairline. But this one, we kind of, me and my wife, kind of picked up on. He decided, I think, to try and grow himself a mustache. And just like his hairline, the mustache ain't quite there. So it's kind of a little tiny thing. It's like, I think, so much so that you didn't even notice it was there. It's like, and that's kind of part of the point.
I did not notice it until you brought it up to me before we begin the program. So, yeah, Baron, I guess my only advice, if by some possible chance you're actually listening to what we have to say here about the pay-per-view or about you, let it go, man. Let it go. I'm telling you. They have hair transplants and they have all sorts of things, Rogaine and stuff like that, man. I don't know. Possibly take, use Google and do some research on that. Moving on here to the WWE Smackdown Women's Title match, which took place between Naomi and the champion Alexa Bliss. So first, starting off with the good here. After years of being on the main roster, Naomi finally gets her due and captures her first title. I personally was very happy about this. Dale, you have some other thoughts.
Well, no, a little bit. As I kind of like Alexa Bliss, but I know that it's been a long, well-deserved road for Naomi. So I kind of like seeing her win it, but I didn't mind having Alexa Bliss as the champion. You kind of did, but we also, I'll just spin it, like right into the bad. We kind of felt like Alexa was maybe just set up here to be the middle person in between Becky and Naomi, because again, you don't typically toss a belt from a face to a face or a heel to a heel. You kind of always have someone in the middle, and it kind of looks like that was Alexa here, and which is just weird because it's like you had all of the in-between stuff. Mickie James showed up to help Alexa win. It's like, and then all of a sudden her title reign kind of just petered out, and Naomi, who we hadn't even seen for a couple months, is back and now champion again. Well-deserved a chance for her to be the champion. So you kind of look at Elimination Chamber as like Bray Wyatt finally getting on top of the mountain after several years of being in the business. I don't think quite as long as Naomi has been up on the main roster, but it's kind of the same thing. Mm-hmm. Both talents that have been there for a while, and they finally get to sniff their first chance at being carrying the show with their main title for the women and the men.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of follow up on what you had to say about Alexa Bliss there, I really think she was set up for failure. She was hot shot up to the SmackDown Live roster from NXT way too early, I thought. And then they gave her the title run way too early. You know, for her to basically be utilized as a transitional champ. Yeah, I just don't quite understand that, what their purpose was. But it'll be interesting to see what's next for Alexa Bliss. But yes, once again, very happy for Naomi and her accomplishment. And yeah, I've been a fan of hers for a while, and definitely one of the more athletic females in the SmackDown division. But as we transition to the ugly, I must say this. Although I'm very happy to see Naomi as the champ, the way which she captured her first title wasn't exactly the prettiest. She landed in a very awkward fashion when she delivered her split-legged moonsault, basically delivering her knees right into the side of Alexa Bliss in the process. Now, I'm not sure exactly who went wrong here. I'm not sure if Alexa Bliss wasn't quite laid out flat, or if Naomi just kind of went a little bit too early when she went for the moonsault. Dale, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I kind of thought the end spot there, where because Naomi did the split-legged moonsault twice. Obviously, the first one, it was a miss or a hit. You couldn't really. I wasn't quite sure if it was a complete miss or if it was a half hit, because then Alexa comes right back, was like firing, and then so that makes me think that she was it was supposed to be a miss, and then obviously we get into the second one, where she hit and Alexa was sideways and not on her back to correctly take it. So yeah, again, I gotta agree with you there. Not sure who went wrong, whether Naomi just kind of went to the move too soon and didn't wait for Alexa to get into position, or Alexa just was slow getting to where her spot.
Yeah, definitely some maybe possibly some timing issues here, but hopefully those things will get corrected and get smoothed out as Naomi continues with her title run with the SmackDown Women's title. So we're gonna move on here to the next match of the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. We had Randy Orton taking on Luke Harper. Now, you and I both agreed that this was a show stealer here. Very well worked match between both of these two big men, on the SmackDown roster. Especially a good showing out of the very bizarre yet talented Luke Harper. Dale, what's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, this was Luke Harper's breakout night. So now it's going to be up to the WWE to see how they can capitalize and position him going forward, because that's the thing. He's now out of the Wyatt family. Mm-hmm. He's on his own, but he's still the backwoods Luke Harper. So what are you going to do with that now? Mm-hmm. It's like but as tonight showed, this dude can absolutely go in the ring. Yes, as like credit is due to Randy Orton. There's a reason why Randy Orton is a 12-time champion and going to be a Hall of Famer, and now main eventing WrestleMania. But Luke, there's no way that this was just a one man carried the others. Like, these two men absolutely delivered. Luke Harper is now a name that needs to be known on SmackDown Live.
Yeah, and I've been singing his praises for quite some time now. I actually, you and I have kind of had some back and forth conversations about this, because I know how you're a fan of Bray Wyatt, but I always said the most talented worker in the Wyatt family was Luke Harper. And then we both kind of agreed, where did Luke Harper come from? Ring of Honor.
Yep.
So it only made sense that he knows how to work, We're going to move on to the bad here. And really, the only bad, and it took us kind of a while to kind of decide upon this one here, was basically in order to avoid Randy Orton losing his momentum, Harper had to lose here. Right? I mean, he absolutely cannot win this match. That is about the only bad that we picked out here, right, Dale?
Yeah, you kind of look at it that way. I still thought there might have been a slim chance you could have Harper go over, because it would help him send off into his separation from the Wyatt family, because Orton's got his ticket is stamped to WrestleMania, and there's no way to get out of it, and he's Randy Orton. But it kind of still is a slow momentum. Is that you got to have Randy Orton be looking strong, even though he is Randy Orton. He can take a couple losses and it doesn't really hurt him, but he's got to pile up the wins, especially now that Bray Wyatt has the belt. It looks like we are the last two members standing in the Wyatt family are now going to be heading towards WrestleMania for the title. And right now, though, the interesting thing is you didn't see the split coming yet. It didn't look like they were ready to split, and now you've got Wyatt the champion, Orton the Royal Rumble winner, and they're going to face each other, even though really the split hadn't come yet that we all kind of were expecting to happen.
Yeah. And I mean, now that they've kind of gone in this direction of, of Bray Wyatt capturing the title, there is no other way that they could go with this other than Randy challenging him for the title. Because once you win the Royal Rumble, you actually have the right to challenge the champion from either brand. But Randy challenging either Kevin Owens or Bill Goldberg for the WWE Universal title just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So, moving on to the only thing that we could possibly figure out here for the ugly. Luke Harper, like I said, very talented worker. He definitely has a very, gnarly beard, which has been known to collect all sorts of gross stuff, and tonight was no exception. Dale, I think you spotted a couple of things floating around in his beard tonight, didn't you?
Yeah, I don't know if it was some spittle or some snot. I don't know, but he definitely piles up some stuff in the beard that's kind of gross, and that unfortunately was really the ugly, and it's just the accumulated look of Luke Harper, just being that backwoods type guy. It kind of can go a little south sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. So, moving on here, we're gonna talk about Natty, who took on Nikki Bella here. Now, I remember one of the more unique things about the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view was I took a look at the card and saw they actually had 3 women's matches featured on the card tonight. That's an anomaly. That's not something that you see very often. And I remember saying to myself, I said, Becky versus who did Becky take on earlier this evening? I can't remember. Mickie James. I said that would be a solid contest there. I said that Nikki versus Natty might just have to play the miracle worker and drag something decent out of Nikki. The one that I was actually concerned about the most actually was Naomi taking on Alexa Bliss, because although experienced, I just wasn't quite sure enough if Naomi would have the chemistry with Alexa Bliss to pull off something decent, but they did. So the good of this one was definitely Natty lived up to being a miracle worker, and she actually carried Nikki Bella into a pretty watchable match. You will agree on that, Dale?
Yeah, because I know that the previous feud that Nikki had with Carmella just didn't go very well, and that's the thing. So you got into this one, and Natalya definitely showed why she's still around in the WWE. She definitely is the workhorse of the women. Unfortunately, she kind of tends to be on the losing end all the time.
Which is
at least of late.
It truly is.
As of late, because she had some early title runs in her career, but now she definitely seems like she is just the person that is there to push other talent forward by kind of getting them through matches, and that's exactly what she did with Nikki.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, there were actually a couple interesting things I saw in there. Nikki actually tried to kind of break out a couple new things we hadn't quite seen in her moveset before. Like, I think she delivered a cross arm breaker of some sort to Natty, I think. So, who knows?
The only thing that I did not realize is that she's using the STF from John Cena, and they actually had her, they gave it a name. It was like she had like the Fearless something or other. I was like, I've never seen Nikki Bella use that move, and it already has a name.
Huh? True that.
And it's just the STF from John Cena.
Yeah. Interesting note there. I guess the bad that we had to go with from this one, because like I said, the actual match itself actually was okay. We did not get a definitive conclusion with this match by it ending on a count out, which basically means this feud has to continue. Now, I have absolutely no interest in this feud whatsoever. I do have a slight sliver of interest after, what I saw this evening. Dale, what's your take on that?
Yeah, this one is definitely playing off of a total divas, and trying to work off the interactions that all of these characters have from that show and the real relationship between Nikki Bella and John Cena. But it's just, I don't know. It's like WWE keeps trying this with the SmackDown rosters to try to bring in the total divas stuff. I don't know. To me, it's not playing all that well.
No.
And obviously, these two then had a backstage brawl even farther into the night. And there was a minor situation where they was in the makeup area where Nikki got thrown into the powder, and it went on to Maurice.
Yes.
The only reason that we kind of bring this up,
yes, it did,
is because there's the rumored match of John Cena, Nikki Bella, Miz, and Maurice. And I was like, if this is the way this thing is going to start, this is absolutely terrible.
Dale, you just had to go and bring that up, didn't you? Because I think that match is going to happen at WrestleMania. Because I think when we had discussed this maybe a couple weeks ago, we had said the downside of Bray Wyatt, if he did go on to win the Elimination Chamber, then we do get Randy versus Bray at Mania. What happens to John Cena? And the rumor was out there that, yeah, we're going to possibly get the mixed tag match between Cena and Nikki versus Miz and Maurice. Really, I mean, because of the names themselves, you absolutely cannot do this. But tell me that match wouldn't fit on the kickoff pre-show.
Oh, yeah. Like, to me, it's like that is kickoff worthy, but that's just the thing. John Cena ain't going to be in no kickoff show.
There's no way in hell that him and The Miz will be on the kickoff show, but oh my goodness. Moving on here. So the ugly of this one here was definitely the spear. The spear that Natty took from Nikki up there on the ramp, and she hit her with a lot of force on that one too, so much where she actually kind of bounced off the ramp a little bit. What'd you think about that one, Dale?
Yeah, it's kind of a stretch. It was a decent spear, it's like good impact, but for the women to do a spear spot on the stage is kind of interesting. And that's just the thing. Is like I'll go back to it. When we had Carmella and Nikki, it was easy to find ugly. It was like that thing was straight up all ugly. Besides the two of them, their feud was just didn't work. This one, it was kind of tough to find it. It was like I kind of just pinpointed this one just because it was an unusual spot for women to do a spear with that type of effort onto the stage.
Definitely. So now our next match here was our tag team turmoil match. We had several tag teams involved, including the Fashion Police, Beauty and the Man Beast, the Vaudevillains, the Usos, the Ascension, also the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, American Alpha. The good of this one was American Alpha, they overcame the odds and retained the SmackDown tag titles after being attacked by the Usos post-match. Dale, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. There are, to me, right now, only two tag teams on SmackDown that deserve to be tag team champions. That's the Usos and then the defending American Alpha.
Without question. Without question.
Those are the only two I want to see in tag team title matches right now. So it absolutely is a good thing that American Alpha came out on top. It's just where kind of are they going to be positioned as we move forward on the road to WrestleMania? Because that's the thing. Is like you have the other 5 tag teams. Unless we're going to get Usos and American Alpha at WrestleMania, we're going to get another cluster of all these tag teams thrown together for some WrestleMania match. And I guarantee you it's going to be on the kickoff show. Just looking at some of the preliminary...
I bet you. Yeah.
Some of the preliminary actions. Like we have... they're not even on WrestleMania yet, and we already have 10 matches slated that were probably going to be on the main show. So everything else I kind of think that gets booked now is on the kickoff show, which is unfortunate that you're burying probably some of the better talent onto the kickoff show.
Yep, and that's just unfortunate the way it happens. And to follow up on your thoughts, for the bad, this match was really poorly booked. Because the way it should have worked out was, the Ascension should not have been the last tag team to enter that match. Given the history that's taken place between the Usos and American Alpha, it should have came down to them. Dale, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I get that the Ascension got the right to be last by winning on the last episode of SmackDown Live before the pay-per-view. But it's just, I don't know, it kind of was deflating that when it was American Alpha and the Usos, I was like, oh, great, these two are going to be the last. And then they brought up that there was still one team left to go. And I was like, oh, we still have one team left to go. Now, had this been the Ascension coming off of their Supreme run in NXT, I'd be like, oh, great, cool, final 3 teams are good. But this is an Ascension team that has done absolutely nothing on the main roster.
Yeah, those guys have been in obscurity. And it's really funny to me because I had said about the coolest thing that the Ascension really has going for them, moving on to our ugly here, their face paint and their masks. Their look has really evolved, and it's very cool. Victor's face paint is just downright sick. I mean, that is just some cool design that he has going on there on the side of his face. Like, he only has that thing on one side. And then Connor's kind of sporting like a mask that you had actually saw on Twitter, right? That some guy had designed for him?
Yeah, one of the WWE designers pointed out that he was working on a mask for Connor, and I was like, well, that's pretty cool. But at the time of also seeing it, I was like, this is a pretty cool mask design for a Job Squad team, as it was.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Exactly.
So I was thinking maybe that he was going to hold it till WrestleMania, and they were going to continue to climb up the tag team ranks, and then by WrestleMania, when they unveiled the mask, they were going to be a little bit more of a force on SmackDown. Obviously, they're the last team to enter here, so you got to have the attention on them as they were coming in, and we noticed the mask, and I thought that was pretty cool. But the one thing that isn't cool about Connor is his face paint design is not good.
Yes. Connor, keep that mask on because you are an ugly dude. That's about all I could say. Yeah. I don't know. I don't understand exactly what his design is because, like I said, Victor's is very cool. But, yeah, he looks almost like a cross between like a zombie and like a giant rat or something. I don't know anything complimentary really to say. Yeah, keep that mask on, Connor. Moving on here to our next match. Dolph Ziggler, who took on Kalisto and Apollo Crews, and this was a 2-on-1 handicap match here. The good here was definitely the fact that Kalisto did not continue to sell the injury, from which he had taken from the hands of Dolph Ziggler, and he actually joined the match, saving it in the process. Dale, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, pretty much. I kept telling you the only thing I thought was good in that match was Apollo Crews' enziguri to a Ziggler. I didn't have much else. Was sick. This was probably the down point of Elimination Chamber. It was nice to see Apollo Crews start to pick up some winning momentum on the main roster. And I kind of like the heel Dolph Ziggler again, but he also keeps losing too. So wins and losses aren't really supposed to matter because he just keeps attacking everything. I kind of like where they're going with all of this. The match didn't really deliver.
No.
But it was nice to see that Apollo Crews maybe has some winning finally on the main roster now.
Yeah, I'm really beginning to think that Apollo Crews might eventually have to revert to a heel turn in order to possibly develop a little bit because he is just not getting over with the WWE Universe, which leads us to our bad. Now, we both agree, we enjoy heel Ziggler, but towards the end of the match there, he kind of did the whole spot where he had Apollo's leg trapped in the chair and he was just wailing on him. The WWE Universe completely turned on Apollo Crews. And while Dolph was carrying out his attack, the crowd was sitting up there chanting, "One more time, one more time." So you had made mention that you had noticed that a lot of heels were getting, cheers from the crowd and getting enticed by the crowd lately. So Dale, what's your thoughts there?
Well, yeah, that's just the thing. It's like you got AJ Styles is supposed to come off as a heel on SmackDown as well, and he constantly keeps getting the AJ Styles chance that he has to revert to just telling the people to shut up.
Basically.
You got Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho on Raw are supposed to be heels, and everybody's just waiting for them to make it to the list and cheering when he puts somebody on it. So, and that's the thing. It's like, and now you got heel Ziggler, and everybody's loving it. It's like that he's gone crazy and taking people out with the chair.
Yeah, very WWF Attitude Era-esque stuff that we're seeing there.
I will say though, like that is one of the things though, as we kind of learned in a little bit of the training that we had, is it's very easy to be a heel. It's very hard to be a face.
It is. It truly is. It is not easy to captivate an audience and keep them engaged and have them hanging on every single word. Yeah, I love playing the heel. I loved it. It was so much easier being an a-hole than it was to be a babyface, I'm telling you. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. So our only ugly here that we had in this one was pre-match. Ziggler came up to Kalisto and he just hurled him into the video boards. That's part of the set that they have up there. I think he even took out like a couple of the areas that were supposed to be lit up there in the process. Dale, what do you have to say about that one?
Yeah, I noticed that his back knocked out the lights in one section, and then his foot like completely like knocked off a part of the backdrop. There was like a hole to the stage area. So I just kind of thought it was like that was the ugly in the fact that they uglified the stage.
Yeah, I'd say so. Nice work there, Dolph. So our final match that we're going to talk about here is Mickie James, who took on Becky Lynch. As expected, these two, are two of the more experienced women on the Smackdown roster here. So there were 3 matches, like I said, featuring the women. This one I thought was definitely the best one out of the 3 in terms of the action in the ring. Dale, any further thoughts on that?
No, we kind of looked at this one as thinking that was going to be the case, and this one also opened the show, so you knew that WWE was kind of hoping the same thing. When you kind of the match that kind of opens the show, it kind of has to deliver to get everybody into the event, and I think Becky and Mickie did that. And again, as you had mentioned before, it's like we had 3 women's cards on the main, or 3 women's matches on the main card, which is a rarity. And this one definitely delivered. It was the best women's match of the night. All 3, though, weren't terrible. So that's a positive there.
Agreed.
And maybe you can kind of look towards maybe they get this women's revolution finally going forward in the right direction. Because I think ever since the brand split, the women's revolution has kind of slowed down a little bit.
Oh, it's been almost non-existent. Really kind of began to lose its momentum even prior to the brand split. And yeah, it's time for it to make a resurgence once again. And a big part of that resurgence has been someone like Mickie James, who was a part of the Divas, once they were called Divas before they were referred to as women's wrestlers. And now that she has returned to the WWE, she has been 0-2 in pay-per-view matches since her return. What's your take on that, Dale?
Yeah, obviously she came up short against Asuka at the NXT Toronto event, and now comes up short here. And my wife brought that up, and she's like, Mickie James has she won anything since he came back? And I was like, no, and I'm not sure how much she really is going to. I think she's kind of one of those veteran talents that WWE signed to just help bring along the roster.
Yeah, definitely try to groom some of the younger talent there. In the process during this match, I'm not sure exactly how it took place, but I noticed that Mickie had a laceration on her elbow, and we got our first and only taste of a blood for the evening. So, Dale, what's your take on that?
Yep, that kind of chalks up our ugly there. And again, it was kind of one of those things that I've hit on before. Anytime a female shows some crimson, you kind of mark that down as one of the uglier spots of the evening, because that's just kind of a rarity, of course, unless it's Lucha Underground, which we've hit on before. Everybody on that roster, I think, is open to a bleeding and has done it. So in WWE, it doesn't really happen unless it's the hard way. And it really doesn't happen with the women unless it's some type of hard bump or something.
So, I mean, overall here, I would say this was a very enjoyable pay-per-view. Definitely a solid offering from the WWE. So, Dale, here I go once again, throwing you under the bus, making you go first here. What would be your grade here on the no gimmick scale? for Elimination Chamber?
You know what? I think this one was better than the Royal Rumble, which we had at 3. So I've got to at least go 3-2-5. I'll go 3-2-5. It's probably the highest ranking I've done on a show since we started, and I pretty much feel it's like this is one of the better pay-per-views that WWE has delivered, because really the only disappointment was the handicap match.
Yeah, that was the only match that truly did not deliver, and I have my gripes and I have my complaints about the actual Elimination Chamber itself, but that was a very solid main event there with those 6 guys, so I'm going to go 3-5. A 3.5 on the no gimmick scale. You know, we could sit here and talk about this all night long, but unfortunately we can't. That's basically all the time that we have for this episode here. So thank you for joining us for our recap, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the WWE Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. We are no gimmicks, no image, all wrestling, all the time. Please visit our official YouTube channel. You can find us at www.youtube.com/The No Gimmicks Podcast. If you would like to receive our notifications when we release our new episodes, then please subscribe. We would like to hear from our viewers, so please leave us some feedback in our comments section on our official YouTube channel. Also, please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at The No Gimmicks PC. Be on the lookout for my updates on my personal LinkedIn account weekly, usually on Monday afternoons. Also, check out Craig Perkins' weekly article featured on ProWrestling.com. And remember, sharing is caring. Feel free to share the links to our episodes with other pro wrestling fans on your social media accounts as well. That does it for this episode of No Gimmicks Podcast. For my tag team partner Dale Clifford in Fernley, Nevada, this is Todd Smith in Bristol, Connecticut signing off. Until next time around, y'all take care.